Well, hello and welcome or welcome back to Read Becca. It is time once again for my weekly chatty catch up on everything I've read, everything I'm currently reading, and everything I'm looking forward to reading for roughly the current week. And last weekend was definitely very chaotic. Last week was very chaotic. And this weekend it's been much more relaxing, much more chill, and a little bit more normal. So I have done some good reading, but I don't have a ton to talk about this week because mainly, so first off, I finished up Starling House by Alix E. Harrow for my in-person book club, but I have read this before and done a dedicated video on this, so I will link that down below if you want to check out more information about this. But I've loved all of Harrow's novels. The novella is less successful, though they were fine, but the novel's really, really fantastic, and everyone is very, very different. And this one is a contemporary Appalachian Gothic. We're following a young woman in Kentucky who has grown up in this small town her whole life. She lost her mother when she was very young and has raised her younger brother from both of their childhood, basically, and has always had a draw to this eerie manor house in their small town community, Starling House. And Starling refers to a children's book author from years and years and years ago who wrote very spooky children's stories. And there are lots of connections there between the spooky house and the spooky author, certainly. So uncovering the history of this house that our main character feels drawn toward ever increasingly is really great and has such atmosphere to it. I love it. So obviously I enjoyed it again on the reread, and it allowed me to pick out so many more details this time around that I didn't get to savor on the first read through. So that was like a great experience of rereading this. And just enjoying all of the elements that this brings together in the history of the house. Very, very much enjoyed, but I don't have a ton more to say beyond what I've already talked about, so go check out my previous video on the book if you are interested. The other one that I also enjoyed very much, but don't have a ton to say on, is The Forbidden Library by Django Wexler. And this is a middle grade, the first in a middle grade series, that I don't have a ton to say about because it is kind of just very standard stuff you would expect from a middle grade. It feels like a middle grade that is really written toward a child reader. It doesn't feel like one of those that has a lot of dense themes. It's mostly entertainment and fantastical and action-packed. So in this story, we are following Alice, and it seems to be somewhat historical, real world, but I couldn't tell you really what period it is. So that's not super prominent or important. But we're following Alice as, at the beginning of the story, she sees something that she's not so sure about. Her father talking to a fairy. She has never thought fairies were real. That was always something completely fictional in storybooks, but she is very sure that this ominous conversation that her father's having is with a fairy. And then something happens, and suddenly she finds herself whisked away to live with a great uncle she didn't even know she had, as so often happens in middle grade books. And then the house where she's living now is somewhat strange. It's known as a library, though it's the house, but within the house is also a library. And she's not allowed to go there on her own. But what danger can a library be, really? And once she finds her way there with assistance, she discovers it's somewhat more than she expected. The library seems a little bigger on the inside and moves around in strange ways, or she thinks it's moving around in strange ways. And as a result, she uncovers that, in fact, this is a magical library, of course. Not only that, but there are magical people, wizards, sorcerers, that sort of thing, but they're known as readers, and they have power within the books. They can pull things out of the books, they can push things into the books and trap them, they can go inside the book and have adventures. And so Alice discovers that she is one such magical person known as a reader. And so this is very much her uncovering that reality, that magic exists, understanding the library, some magical beings that are around that are not people, that are sort of talking cats, which is a delight. I always love a talking cat, though I don't think they're traditional cats, certainly. Going into the books and having adventures, and also just generally learning about the powers, learning the limits of her power. And so it has that very sort of traditional middle grade fantasy vibe. It is very action and adventure focused, I would say. And this first volume, I felt had a satisfying story, but it definitely ends with an open ending leading to the next book. So this is not one that completely closes the story. It's pushing you forward to keep reading. So I certainly do want to keep reading. Though I just don't have a ton to say about it because it feels very like a lot of things I've read before, and I enjoyed it. It felt, I would say, on age range and style, very similar to something like Artemis Fowl. I felt a lot of the same vibes reading this to that series. So I'm glad I finally started this. This is the only one that I own, but I do intend to continue on with this series for sure. This also has a number of really great illustrations in it. Just really beautiful, black and white. And yeah, I enjoyed those very much. I enjoyed the audio narration because I did hybrid read this as well. Fantastic. The narrator actually has kind of a young girl voice, so it felt very natural to the storytelling from Alice's perspective. So another very enjoyable one. I did also finish up a secret project book that finished out a secret project I've had going since October. I had kind of paused, but that's finally done. So I hopefully can get the vlog for that edited and posted up this coming week. Fingers crossed that I will do that because it's, I think, going to be a very long one. So that's everything that I finished. In progress right now, I just started Absolution by Jeff Vandermeer, the final in the Area X quartet. And I also started a cozy book, Butter, Sugar, Magic by Jess Rosenberg. So those are what I am actively reading. My power and internet were both very intermittent over several days this past week. So I should have read a lot more than I did, given that I didn't have access to a lot of stuff and I was having to just download things to watch. Thankfully, my library parking lot has Wi-Fi, so I was able to go there and download some stuff. But I did watch quite a few things. I think the only thing that I finished, like I was really wanting stuff that was just turning my brain off. So I wound up diving into some like true crime docuseries stuff. And the first one that I finished was Devil in the Family, the very recent docuseries on the Frankie family. And I know Sherry Frankie, the daughter, recently has a memoir out as well. But I would say, like, go in with every trigger warning. It is truly horrific to watch. Effectively, this was a family vlogging situation where the mother got really into family vlogging and that became the entire family's job. And portraying themselves in this certain way became a big deal and was very controlling for the children, and just constantly putting up a facade. And that devolved into from overt emotional abuse to like very extreme physical abuse. Just really horrific stuff. And that was over the course of going from being religiously Mormon and presenting that to joining an actual like smaller subgroup that was very culty and taking things very, very far, going into a place of like believing in devils and demons as an actual thing in their lives and reacting to that. And so that's where the title obviously comes from, but very extreme, very horrifying. But also it's one of those things where like you just watch and seeing it helps you to pick apart like where those things go wrong. And like I have such strong feelings in general about children being like exposed on the internet broadly, like just as an exploitative practice on its own. I don't understand or relate to people who do that to their own children. And so that on its own was very hard, but watching that devolve into pretty extreme abuse was just shocking and terrible. So yeah, I recommend watching it just for the exposure to that slow breakdown in terms of norms, I guess, and what can happen behind the scenes for these people who are trying to be influencers. I just don't see it as a very good situation. And I say that as someone who has a channel, but like that drive to get the numbers and get attention can be so problematic. And it is very important to be on your guard about that. So very interesting, very horrifying. Other than that, I watched a lot of stuff, but I didn't finish a lot of stuff. I was super upset because Yellow Jackets is actively running right now. And most of the stuff I'm watching is like week to week. And at lunch on Friday, not this Friday, but the previous Friday when the storm happened, my coworker had watched the new episode of Yellow Jackets. And so my internet went out and the storms were happening all Friday night, so I didn't get a chance to watch it, but my coworker had teased that season 3 has been a pretty slow, like very character focused season so far. And like finally some real like stuff is happening and we're getting reveals in that episode. And then I wasn't able to watch it for several days. So now I fortunately have been able to catch up on the last 2 episodes. And yeah, the last 2 episodes were just big stuff happening, big stuff. So yeah, that's everything for watching, I think. And then life, as I said, like that dominated my week. So I think I filmed last weekend on Saturday, and at that point I had no internet, but power was on. And then over the course of the week, it was very up and down. So repairs and stuff, just them having to remove trees that were downed and everything was taking people's power out all over. There was still quite a lot of wind, so that was knocking up people's power out as well. So it was very chaotic. I ended up not having internet straight through, but Monday morning I was starting work, and shortly after I started work, my power went out. So I went from having no internet from Friday night to Monday morning to no internet and no power Monday morning. And it came on in the afternoon for a couple hours, right as I was about to go to the office because my laptop was gonna die for work. I've been using my phone as a mobile hotspot to keep working from home, and trying not to use a ton because I don't have unlimited data. Like for me, it makes more sense just based on my situation to once in a while pay overages than all the time pay an extra, whatever, 20 bucks. So I have been doing that and like keeping an eye on my data usage, like trying to keep it low so I'm not downloading tons of stuff and everything. And it came on for like an hour and a half, just enough time that my laptop got charged. I was able to stay at home, not go to work, yay. But then it went out again. So I stayed down until Tuesday around lunchtime, managed to succeed just long enough that I didn't have to go into the office, thankfully. Barely, but a whole nother day with no power and no internet. A couple things that I lost from my fridge. My freezer, fortunately, thanks to that, the power on in the middle of the day on Tuesday, freezer stayed good and didn't completely de-thaw. And the couple things in the fridge that I was concerned about, I just ate early on and tossed what was left. And so then I leave on Tuesday to go replenish stuff from the grocery store. And I get onto the main road and all the lights are out. Like all the traffic lights are out. No traffic lights the whole way down the main road. I was like, this is strange, because I had been through there the night before and they were fine. So I get down to the grocery store and they're on backup generator and they're not selling any cold stuff, which the stuff I need to replace is cold stuff. So I got things to tide me over until whenever. But yeah, it was a very strange experience to be like in such chaos for just like a week straight. So everything is fine. I have power and internet now. I know things in the area have continued to be very chaotic. I did find out that one of the EF2 tornadoes path was less than a mile from my house. That's great. So that's why things are so knocked out right now. But thankfully it did not hit my neighborhood. Nothing horrible in my immediate neighborhood, at least. But definitely very nearby, things were really, really bad. So I'm very thankful that things worked out, that I just lost internet mostly and a little bit of power. So getting back to normal now is where I'm at. So I think that that's most of everything from my week, except that I did go to an author event as well. I went to see Kat Bohannon, the author of Eve, and she had a really nice like conversation about many different things. It was kind of a strange one because she talked a little bit about the whole topic of evolution of women's bodies and the different evolutionary ancestors that we have that were key turning points in like developing us as people. But it definitely leaned or went into kind of a man-hating place. Like was very upset about the state of like policy right now. So number one, it was a little bit very negative about policy and the effects on science currently that are happening in our new administration, understandably. And then also that negativity was seeping into the tone, talking about medical history and the lack of research, lack of study, lack of medical understanding and openness about the female body just in general. And so that ended up being the main focus of the discussion. Was really like that frustration of, here are all the cool things about that we know, but it has taken so long and so much has just been ignored, under-researched, or just not cared about in medical establishment. And that's getting better. And so there was that sort of hopeful tone of, yeah, things have been turning a corner, but with the way that the administration is going right now, like very much research money is not going to go toward this. There's a lot of controls that aren't really scientifically based that are happening policy-wise. And so it definitely towed the line with being very, very angry and very kind of man-hatey. But I think it stayed on the correct side of the line with that. But it was very snarky. And I thought Cap O'Hannon was actually really personal, really funny in that snarky way. I do kind of wish it had leaned more toward the, I guess, anthropological, the historical stuff way back in like the evolution elements, because that's what the book is about. But I thought it was fantastic. It was really a great event to go to. And I have been so busy, I haven't had a chance to go to any of the great author events here recently. So I'm glad I finally made it out to another one. So very like all over the place week. I'm feeling very scattered, but good in general. And this weekend, as I said, has been much more chill, and I'm just giving myself the time to relax. It's raining outside today, so I've had just a cozy at-home day and done nothing. I'm about to go put together a Lego. So I'm gonna listen to some audiobooks and put together a Lego, and then maybe start editing my very lengthy vlog for you all, hopefully, that I will have out this week. So I think that's it for my week. Hopefully we will achieve some normalcy in this coming week and things will be back to a steady plane. This year has been just very, very up and down all over the place. So I'm hoping my year will even out a little bit very quickly. So with that, I will leave you and say I hope you have a wonderful coming week in both reading and life, and thank you so very much for watching.